We're live. We're back in action, back in lockdown. The comedy duo that is Phil Tarrant and Tom Panos. Locked up, locked in, locked somewhere. How you going, Tom? You well?
I'm well. Phil Tarrant. It feels like a blast from the past. It feels like Back to the Future. And I'm pumped and excited, Phil, because it looks like, well, we're both in Sydney. It looks like we're going to have a bit of time up our sleeve and a lot of topics to talk about again. So, pumped and excited.
Yeah, I thought we were a one-hit wonder, Tom. Lockdown one from sort of March of 2020 through to about the middle of the year. We got together. What's making headlines? Very popular. The punters loved it. We were able to provide some pretty interesting commentary into trying to get a sense of the market. But then things got better again. We're behind lockdown. We're out and about. We're going to functions. Me and you were on aeroplanes. We're traveling around. We're talking all over the joint. REB was running events like you wouldn't believe. It was going to be a nice pathway. But here we are in July, locked up. This is the fourth week of what is this current lockdown. And all the reads that we're having is it's going to go on for some time. So we thought we'd bring it back into the homes, into the hearts of real estate agents and property managers right across Australia. Back for another go. Series 2. Last time around, what's making headlines? This time around, Tom, what are we going to call it?
So, Phil, we agreed off air. We want to ask the audience. And by the way, the audience here today, we've got a lot of people on live as we're speaking. The audience here today, and we can see some of the comments coming in. You know, Renee, good to see you. Alex, good to see you. Mason, good to see you. We're going on Facebook. We're going on LinkedIn. We're going on Periscope. We're going on YouTube. It's also going to be cross broadcast onto all the REB channels. Phil, I'm excited because we're going to come up with a name, but we want people to come up with a name. And I love talking to you, Phil, because you've got this combination of editorial and sales. And I came through a media company, right, where, you had the salespeople, they wanted to make the money. You had the editorial people, they wanted to create the headlines to get people interested. Because if you had people interested, you could sell ads. And if you could sell ads, the company made money. But you've got this combination, all things real. Lisa Kramer from the Eastern Suburbs says, all things real. We want you to tell us, Facebook, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, what you want the show to be called. But we're going to be touching subjects. We're roughly going to be going for around half an hour or so, Phil. And Phil, we're going to be using a little bit of, we're using StreamYard at the moment. And by the way, I'm pretty excited to be aligned with REB because I believe they are the premier organisation to give you information to the real estate industry on what's happening each morning. By around 7:30, 8 o'clock, you can do a quick 5-10 minute read and know everything you need to know about real estate. And we're going to be doing a lot more stuff because I am going to be the REB ambassador coach for REB, and whether it's the top 50 women, the top 100, the deal makers, most of these people are my real estate clients. Not all of them, but most of them are. So we just thought it would be very, very good to have Tom Panos and the Real Estate Gym and REB come together. But Phil, I want to start off and...
You want to get into it already, dig a load of stuff up. So the baseline philosophy with series 2 of this, and a lot's happened since we signed off the first series, Tom, of what's making headlines. And one of those things was, and we did a launch out on Sydney Harbour, and this is where we formally announced Tom Panos as head coach and trainer for REB. This is something we're pumped about. It's good to actually get some talent in there. And I know you can't help yourself also talking about advertising, mate. You're already trying to sell ad spaces on this particular show. You can't help yourself, but I'm all for it if anyone wants to have a go at it. But we launched it on the harbour. We really, really enjoyed it. It's all coming out now. So that's happened in the lockdown. And then the baseline philosophy, the baseline objective of this particular stream that we're going to do every single Thursday is me and you. We come from different sides of real estate, but we're probably quite fortunate in that we both have considerable reach. Glue those two things together, we touch pretty much all of real estate in Australia. And because we largely have no master or agenda other than improving the real estate sector in Australia, we could probably have conversations that other people can't have. We could probably have conversations that some people are too scared to have. And we're happy to say it as it is. So as you come up with some ideas for this particular show, we're going to push this out. We're going to sit comfortably on the precipice of Tom maybe putting his foot in his mouth, which he does sometimes, but that's where we want to go with it. So we're going to kick off with, did Gladys stuff up? Here we are. I was just on my phone before coming on air, and we've had, I think, 124 cases today, 50 odd of them in the community as we're going. Did Gladys get it wrong? I've been on her side the whole way through COVID. I think she's done a great job, but we didn't lock this down fast enough in Bondi. We should have got into it maybe a week earlier, Tom. Did she stuff up? Yes or no? Thoughts?
Everyone's got 2020 vision after the event, right? Everyone's got 2020 vision after the event. I do think she stuffed up. I do think she stuffed up because, and I can understand why you've got a bit of angst from people in the western suburbs of Sydney, because the way they look at it is, hey, just because you eastern suburbs lot weren't going to go in and tough it out for 3 or 4 days, and you got the benefit of that, now we're stuck for months in a little circle here in Fairfield and Liverpool and what have you. So I can see why they're angry. But I also, feel this is an interesting one. And I'll tell you why. Because it goes to show in life, you've got to watch what you say because it can come back and haunt you, right? So she kept on having a narrative. I won't lock down. I won't lock down. I won't do this. I won't do this. And then what happened, Phil, is this situation comes up and it puts you in a difficult, because as human beings, we want to be in link with what we've said, because otherwise you sound like an idiot or you sound like a liar. So her predicament was that some of these names are coming through, Realty Reality. The Real Deal, says Lisa Novak, right?
The Real Deal, I like it.
Real Estate Agents Learning, right? I like these, but we're going to think it through. So getting back to it, Phil, the issue is that if you turn around and say, hey, I'm not locking down, and then all of a sudden you're faced with this situation, what will happen is you're going to err towards more of what you've said in the past, right? Then you realize, man, this thing's out of control. I've got to do it. And Phil, you don't have to be a mathematician to understand what an exponential curve looks like. And that is that every day that goes by, what happens is you don't have a line that goes up this way, you have a line that goes up that way, right? So time was of the essence. I think she did stuff up.
Yeah, but you can't put it all in Gladys's blame. I saw some of the behaviours and actions, Tom, and you're on this on social media. People are out in the eastern suburbs, and I'm more than happy to beat up the eastern suburbs. It's one of my hobbies, actually. I'm on the other side of the harbour. But they didn't take it too serious. They were still out there doing whatever they wanted. There was these super spreader events. It was just that laissez-faire idea where everyone went, yeah, we've been through lockdown before. We're sort of back now. Not a big deal. Life goes on. Let's get on with it. And look what's happened. The western suburbs, southwestern suburbs of Sydney are those that are going to be the most impacted. Now, I've got a foot in the western suburbs. I grew up out Blacktown. I don't live there anymore, but I've still got a passion for it. I still own property out there, by the way. I've got a passion for supporting.
So, Phil, guess what? You grew up in Blacktown and you became a media empire, and Delene Lewis from Lux Listings grew up at Blacktown and she became a superstar agent, which we didn't have.
I know, mate. We'll chat about that. We'll definitely have a chat about that, mate. Blacktown is where it's at. It's the heartbeat of the nation. Blacktown is where all the talented people come out of, better than any other place in all of Sydney and Australia. I'm telling you that for free. But mate, I know what it's like to.
He came from Blacktown. But let me tell you, on New Year's Eve, his is the hottest place to be at. His balcony on New Year's Eve looks over, has the best view in the harbour. So I've got to tell you, they might start at Blacktown, but often they don't end there.
Maybe we can get Gavin over to try and sell it for me, mate. He's the hottest agent in town at the moment. Maybe we'll get into Lux Listings. But mate, I know what it's like for a lot of people to grow up in these sort of working class areas. We'll call them that. A lot of them live paycheck to paycheck, mate. It's bloody hard out there, and getting locked up as they have been locked up right now. Sydney stops if you stop the western suburbs. Sydney stops if you stop southwestern Sydney. It's where most of the workers live. They do the stuff that keeps this economy moving forward. Locking it up is not great. There's going to be a lot of people hurting through this. Everyone's got responsibility and accountability to make sure we get this thing shut up as quickly as possible. You know, what really annoys me, and, you know, we're talking about sitting on the precipice of commentary, you know, they've shut down the construction industry, right? Like, that's a lot of the workforce locked up right now. Not only is it going to stifle the economy, there's people not getting paychecks. That's bad. That's really, really bad.
But Phil, can I ask you on that, why was there, you know, like everyone's come to a lockdown, but I noticed in the last 48 hours, out of everyone, it's this building industry that freaked out the most. They just went crazy. They've gone nuts. Why is that? Why did they get, why them more than, say, you know, the cafe owner or the...
It's a really good point, Tom. And you know, we here at Momentum, obviously we've got REB. We're probably one of Australia's biggest events companies, right? Like, we can't do events again. The event industry in Australia is worth $35 billion to the national economy. That's with a B, right? I think construction industry is about 50-something billion. Maybe it's a bit more. Like, construction is considerably bigger than events, but not that much bigger. There's some of the numbers I've seen. More people have lost their jobs in events than the entire size of the Australian Defence Force. That's how many people lost their jobs in these areas. You don't see it at all on the media. It doesn't get talked about. Construction industry's got some pretty big, deep pockets who lobby government pretty hard. Hence the reason why they've got a big voice around it. And I sort of say to them, good on them. Push hard. Push the politicians. You know, we need outcomes. I think we all understand, and we're pretty clear, the fact that we do need to lock up for a period of time. But if everyone isn't participating, if everyone isn't contributing, we've seen what's happened with some people jumping in their cars and removalists and all that sort of stuff, how it compromises everything. You know, we've got to get the economy back. Back to Gladys. I'm going to score her pretty well, Tom. I'm going to defend Gladys. I like Gladys. She's doing a good job. Could have she locked up the eastern suburbs a little bit earlier? Maybe. Hindsight, 2020, whatever it is. You got to remember, mate, she's kept our borders open. She's really focused on supporting business, supporting industry, and we've done pretty well, mate. So I'm on Gladys's side.
I'd love everyone below in the comments on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Periscope. Tell us, what have you thought of Gladys's job so far? Would you give her a higher score than Daniel Andrews?
Absolutely.
What about the one in WA? Do you rate him?
I think he's done reasonably well. You know, Western Australia, they're interesting folks out there. They wanted to be the independent country of Western Australia, mate. If they could get out of Australia and create their own little place, I'm sure they'd do it in a heartbeat. They've got the fortunate opportunity of being able to lock up their borders pretty tight. There's a couple of roads going to WA and no one really wants to drive them, and you shut down the airport, mate, you can lock that state up. I think he's done a pretty reasonable job, mate. There's no COVID at the moment in WA. They're doing what they normally do. They've got big events out there right now, 1,000 people, 2,000 people. Nothing's slowing them down. I think he's done reasonably well. I don't really want to get into Brisbane because it might show some bias in terms of politics. And for the purpose of this, I'm completely apolitical. I don't really have any particular leaning. But if you look at the two governments of Victoria and Brisbane, they've done it tough. They've done it hard. And for us Sydney-siders, us people that live in New South Wales, doing it best, I reckon. Maybe not now, though.
Phil, I want to ask you on this topic. Today I found out, congratulations, Brisbane, well done. You got the Olympics. But Anastasia Palaszczuk, she's gone to Japan, right? She's gone to Japan. And she's got humiliated because on a press conference, she basically says, I'm not going to the opening ceremony. And the other guy, John Coates, it must be a bit of a legend because he keeps, everything he has a crack at, he seems to win. But I want to ask you, Phil, she went to Tokyo and she wasn't going to go to the opening ceremony. She was going to go sit in her room. You've flown over. You've got to do all this stuff, the quarantining, all this. You've flown business class and you're going to sit in your hotel room for the opening ceremony? What's that about?
Oh, I don't know, mate. Don't get me started. I think, here at Momentum, we've got big brands in the aviation sector. So I'm right across how Queensland in particular has operated through COVID-19. Mate, she's been so against anyone travelling internationally through this whole period of time. However, it's okay for her to travel up to the Olympics to go and do what they need to do. It was a fait accompli that Brisbane was going to get the Olympics. There's no one else in it. She didn't need to go. So she's holed up in a hotel somewhere. That's fair enough. Good on her. I think Coates does a great job. I think he's a really good operator. He's great in terms of attracting this business. And the big question for me now, Tom, and if there's anyone that's listening to this, I want you to come on and have a chat with me on the Smart Property Investment Podcast. What does Brisbane winning the election mean for property prices and for property investors? Maybe that's a topic for another time, Tom.
Okay, 100%. That's a good topic. We got plenty of time to talk about it, but I'm going to bring up on the screen this next subject that we spoke about. Politicians
to take pay cut. Yeah, mate. Like you're an SME business owner. You employ people. I'm an SME business owner. I employ people. Yes, there's been a handful. I'd like to admit the JobKeeper first time around was a pretty good stimulus package. I don't think we're going to see it this time around. Politicians, public servants, those people who are on the paid by the government, whether it's state or federal politicians, COVID's been pretty good for them. They're still been getting their paycheck every single week. They're still be able to put food on the table. They're not like the SME sector. And there's some SMEs out there, micro businesses, small traders, 2 or 3 people. They're doing it tough, right? Politicians to say they're working hard at the moment. Maybe. Should they take a pay cut? Possibly.
But Phil, I Googled, I wanted to find out, and I know that they get pension benefits down the track after their career in politics. But, Gladys is on 400 grand roughly a year, right? That's her salary. Then you've got Scott Morrison on 530, right? Roughly. So you can Google it. That information there is, it's not private. That information is public. Now, I listen to TV commentators. So a lot of the media commentators, Alan Jones say they should take a pay cut, right? I don't know. I think to myself, the New Zealand Prime Minister took a pay cut. Personally, I think 400, 500 grand a year, man, they appear, they're not bludgeoning. They're working hard. They might be making decisions that people don't like, but they are working hard, right? I don't like it when you've got a media person saying, you take a pay cut. No, why don't you take a pay cut telling the other person to take a pay cut, right? Like, taking a pay cut doesn't get rid of misery, right? Better decisions help, I think, right? Taking a pay cut, I'd rather you get things right than have half your salary and get things wrong. Do you know what I mean by that?
Well, mate, you go to any worker and say, hey, I want you to still do the same job and it's really, really hard at the moment, but I'm going to pay you half as much to do that. Mate, it's not good from a morale point of view. Politicians are in the spotlight. Politicians are in the limelight. It's a really tough one. Like, these pollies are working hard, irrespective of which state they're in or whether they're federal. Mate, Scott Morrison getting paid $500,000 a year. Mate, that guy could go get a lot more money somewhere else in the private sector, a lot more. Now, to be fair, when he leaves politics, and no doubt we'll talk about what's going to happen with the federal election on this show once we get a name for it, mate, he's going to be okay. He's going to be doing speaking gigs for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, $100,000, $200,000 initially. He'll make his money on the back end of this, but not an easy job right now. And I watched him the other day, Prime Minister Scott Morrison, on it was like a COVID update thing, and he was answering questions, and you could just see COVID's probably not the only big issue he's dealing with right now. For everyone else, the focus might be on COVID-19. He's still got to run the country. There's a whole bunch of other stuff going on that he's got an eye on. And you could just see when he was chatting in the back of his mind, you could see he was probably thinking about all the other big issues he has to deal with, mate. When you turn the lights off in the office and go home each day, not for Scott Morrison, same for Gladys, same for all the state premiers and their supporting mechanism. So paying what they're worth, let's get the best people possible running this country. And you made a point, Tom. You want them to be making decisions. They might not always be right, but at least make the decisions, and decision making is important. So get them engaged, pay them what they're due. I've changed my tune. Pay them more. Now, let's get better people into politics.
Well, maybe that's an issue as well, because with better decisions, you'll take better actions, and with better actions, you'll get better results. Will you get better decisions? Will you get better decisions from higher paid people? Will a $1 million Prime Minister run it better than a $500,000 Prime Minister? Many will argue, Phil, that people that are doing the job in politics, it's not about the money anyway, right? Because if it was, they'd be able to go work another job and get more money, right? So it's not about the money. So I'm not quite sure of that. But I will tell you one thing, Phil. Sometimes I don't sleep well because I'm worried I'm going to have a tech issue on something that I'm doing the next day. What about these people? How do you sleep well when you know that you've got the health of people in your hands with your decision? I reckon we got to ease off a little bit on them. But I want to actually talk to you about this.
So hang on. So we're pro-politician, are we, Tom? Is that our? We're going to be there. We're pro-politician. I am.
Australia, New Zealand, we're doing it better than the rest of the world. Man, I've got to tell you, some of the stories I hear about Greece, some of the stories you hear about some of these countries with corruption, you turn around and say, hey, it's not perfect, but I tell you what, could be a hell of a lot worse. And when you think about it, overall, Phil, I got to tell you, not a heap of people have died. Most people are healthy. It's a pain. It's a pain to actually be sort of stuck at home. But I've got to tell you, man, doesn't matter who you are, whether you're running a business or whether you're an employee, there's a bit of money coming everyone's way. It's not great, but you're going to be able to eat. You brought this subject up before, and I want to talk about it.
Arrogant agents. Have you spelled arrogant right, mate? I'm not really good at spelling, but
have I spelled arrogant?
I don't know. I don't know if it looks like
it. I'm not sure. Let's ask.
I'm more of a journalist that does the broadcasting stuff rather than the writing. Spelling's never been my strong point, mate. I want to have a chat about this. This is important, and back to the idea of this particular series of what we're doing here. Talk about stuff that might make people a little bit uncomfortable. Talk about stuff which is probably going to polarize people. I sort of get around a fair bit in property, Tom. We spoke about sort of the uniqueness of what both me and you do. I have huge access to pretty much anyone in real estate, as you do, right? What a privilege, mate. But I'm spending a lot of time chatting with buyers agents at the moment, and we all know we don't need to sort of talk about how hot the market is, right? But I'm chatting with buyers agents, and they're flagging with me. They're going, geez, real estate agents have got arrogant recently. Geez, real estate agents have forgotten partnerships. Geez, real estate agents are going to get a pretty hard lesson when markets do change and they start banging down the doors of buyers agents, and buyers agents are going to remind them how they treated them during this hot market. What's your read on this, mate? You got to remember there's two sides of every market. Keep your friends close, even when the sun is shining.
Yeah, well, I think if you're a smart agent, you wouldn't be an arrogant agent, because a smart agent knows that a buyer's agent is talking to people who are in the buying and selling process. And we clearly know that in real estate, one of the ways that you get business, where you get listings, is having connectors and influence refer you. So the minute you become arrogant to a buyer's agent is the minute that you've closed the door for any referrals. That's the first thing. The second thing, Phil, is this. If you're playing the short game, you're just trying to do what you can there and there. And in a market that we've got right now, which has got a very high absorption rate, which basically means if it comes on the market, it's going to get swallowed and absorbed immediately, right? So here's the deal. Markets change. They don't change as fast as what Gladys says, that you're going to be healthy in the morning and be on a ventilator at night. I think that's hysterical. But markets do change over a month or two, right? And what actually happens is the smart people are always making sure they're keeping every interaction they have with everyone at a pretty happy level. So karma's a terrible thing in real estate. And all I've got to say to you, hey, you can still manage inquiry in a polite, respectful way and not have to spend your whole day with them, versus sort of giving people a very poor level of service. And your buyer's agent that you've got this information probably represents the view of a lot of buyers. I have a lot of buyers that tell me, man, I'm so happy I've bought something because no agent would come back to me. People aren't calling them back from open for inspections. The minute an agent finds out that a buyer doesn't have a property to sell, they actually tone down the level of service that they give that person. They basically think, well, this is going to sell anyway. So I've got to say, man, please, if you're an agent and you're watching this right now, I'm going to say to you right here, please understand, buyers can be your total fuel for listings, because if you went down the path and dug a little bit deeper and just said to a buyer, by the way, have you sold from where you've come from yet? By the way, would you like me to sort of just flick you over a free CMA? I know that you're not doing anything. I just want to put it out there. Man, if you just dug a little bit deeper, I can't get over, Phil, the amount of people, the amount of buyers that ring up off a realestate.com or domain ad, and all they're doing is comparing that property to their current home. And all an agent does is he picks up the phone. They say, oh, I'm talking about 12 Smith Street. Oh, yeah, what do you want to know? Well, how much do they want? Upwards of 1.5. Okay, see ya, bye. Man, that could be the next door neighbour doing a price check to find out what it's going for because they're thinking of selling. That's how short-sighted some of the real estate industry is.
Yeah, so...
By the way, we spelled arrogant wrong. Spelling is spot on. No, sorry, we're right. Sorry.
You got it right?
Is correct. Spelling is
there
correct.
You go.
Did you, Phil, I want to ask you, at Blacktown, did you go to a private school or public school?
Oh, mate, I went to Grantham High School, which is now called the Hills Sports High. So, yeah, nothing special where I went to school, mate, but they learned me good how to read and write and that. So I'm spot on.
Now, Phil, last subject, because this is the one everyone wants to talk about, because this is the money shot. This is the money shot here. What do you reckon?
Answering this is a bit outside my pay grade. I've got to say, therefore, put in front of it. I'm just a journo that listens to what other people say, yourself included, Tom. My view, and I'm also in the market. I'm a buyer at the moment as well. I've chatted to some people that you know about potentially finding me some stuff. But I think we're getting towards the top end of the rapid price increases that we've seen over the last quarters. So I'm starting to see that level off. And I think what's going to happen is that all of those people who have been thinking about selling and have been waiting to see how far this market will run will start thinking about listing within the next couple of months. So my view between September, October and Chrissy, and this is dependent on what happens with COVID and lockdowns and accessibility and all that sort of stuff, I reckon you're going to get listings coming onto the market. And I think you're going to get a lot of them. However, I think they're going to get absorbed pretty quickly by the pumped up demand of a whole bunch of buyers out there frustrated with the last sort of 6 months trying to be in the market. So I think you're largely going to get equilibrium. I just think you're going to get a lot more sales during this upcoming period. It's got to get a little bit easier for buyers with more stock on market, but still, there's still going to be a lot of competition for those properties, mate. That's my read of it. I'd probably lean on you because I know you chat with a whole bunch of other people like John McGrath, who's pretty dialed in with this sort of stuff. What are they saying, mate?
So John McGrath has a view that I also share, and my view hasn't been affected by John's view. My view, I actually was talking to John about it beforehand, and I said that there's going to be a big listing blitz. And the reason I say that, I believe that we're going to have the largest levels of stock in any spring ever. And the reason I say that, Phil, is that
big call.
Yes, it is a big call, and we're going to be here when we're actually going through spring. So you're going to be able to remember, because you've got a good memory, Phil, and you're going to say, Tom, yes, you were right, or Tom, where's the stock? The reason I believe that there will be stock is right now there are vendors who are not putting their homes on the market. Whether they're COVID worried, whether they feel that they need an open for inspection and they don't feel it's going to suit their property, whether it's an investment property and the tenants have basically said, no one's coming into my property, or whether it's because as human beings, Phil, we always think do nothing if we're unsure. You just do nothing. You just do nothing. It's the safest thing that people think there is. So I believe we're going to have a heap of property come on the market. And in addition to that, there is a big debate at the moment. You know, the Real Estate Institute's got a view, and a lot of agents have got their own personal view, and that is Can you have styling? Can you have photographers? Can you have videographers? I'm not going to go sit here. Those of you can watch the previous videos I've done with the Real Estate Institute. I know that you guys have covered your view on there and covered the legislation as to what you can and can't do. But regardless, all these factors at play mean that there are people that can't do what they traditionally wanted to do, which is get a videographer and a stylist and a photographer, put a signboard up, have a handyman come in, fix their home, and get it ready. It's not going to happen. The minute it does, I believe that we're going to get a rush of stock on the market. In fact, Phil, I have actually told my family I'll be working on Sundays doing auctions right through from September to December. I can't. I'm getting about 40 bookings per week. So for me to actually do it, I'll do, 13 and 13, right? And then the others can go to other people. But on that point, Phil, let's leave it on this. I want to ask you, when do you reckon restrictions are going to start easing? Let's start with Sydney. When do you think?
For the purpose of real estate getting back to some level of normal, or just getting out and about and
overall,
having a beer
at the
in a
moment,
pub?
everyone's saying we're in lockdown. When's the lockdown going to end?
Yeah, I'm going to call. Well, today's the 22nd of July. I'm going to call that about the 25th, 26th of August is when it's going to be relaxed to a level where real estate can function reasonably effectively. You're going to be able to go into a house without too many restrictions. I reckon you're going to be able to go potentially to a restaurant again and not just takeaway. And that's what's that? That's 5 weeks, 6 weeks from today is my call, Tom.
Okay.
Putting it out there.
I want people in the comments below, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you're watching this or on replay, when do you think restrictions will lift in Sydney? And can I ask you reckon Melbourne's going to be fine in the next 3 or 4 days?
I reckon Melbourne will probably go another week. They'll extend it by another week. They're pretty good operators down there. Melbourne, I think they're conditioned. People that live in Melbourne around these lockdowns, I think they behave themselves. And they take lockdown protocol maybe a little bit more seriously than Sydney siders. So I think they will do it better because they've got that muscle memory of what to do and how to do it effectively and what the upside is. They know what it's like to live through a pretty draconian lockdown. And it was even worse in Melbourne than what it is here in Sydney in terms of nighttime curfews. And already they're banding around what would be the next stage of lockdown for Sydney. That would be 2.5 kilometres from your home, nighttime curfews, really locked up. Mate, we got to get back to business here in Sydney. We've got to get construction working. We've got to get Western Sydney and Southwest Sydney opened up to get those workers back doing what they need to do. But I want to see the comments from everyone. Tom, I think Brizzy will be reasonably resilient. They shut the borders today to New South Wales. Collectively, not just Sydney. They'll do what they can to protect what they have up there. It's what they've done up to this point. WA is doing pretty well. South Australia, they're going to go pretty hard. They go hard early when it comes to lockdowns. I remember back when there was this pizza box scare and someone thought you catch COVID from a pizza box, they locked the place up pretty tight. That would have been in November of last year. They got around it pretty quickly. Tassie's Tassie, what a great place to be. But it's going to be tough here in New South Wales and Sydney in particular for the next 5 to 6 weeks.
Johnny Cunningham saying here, the great Johnny Cunningham saying, agree on timing of opening, but a lot of agents are still doing appraisals when fair trading has said you cannot do them. So interesting approaches out there. Yep, well said, John. That is happening out there. September 1st, a lot of people are saying September. Nawiji's saying September or October. James is saying September. Priya's saying first week of September. Lisa Novak saying, I've been flat out for the last 6 weeks, 6 listings so far this week. Elias is saying homeschooling really puts the brakes on. I need 15% minimum shedding in that area I'm looking to buy. Elias wants to buy cheap like you do, like I do. So everyone, thank you so much for all your comments. Listen, us a
pretty
favour.
well observed. I think you know what, Tom. I reckon you probably get a full cycle of term 3 for school. They'll take us through to the next school holidays, and then I reckon they'll probably relax it. I don't know when the next school holidays are, but they'll probably bookend it. I think maybe in that regards. Hey, Tom, before we sign off, I just want to make a note, and this is good for real estate. You know, we're probably real estates and the business of real estate sales agents and property managers. We're probably their biggest advocates in Australia. We obviously want to fly the flag as much as possible. We're both aware and we both appreciate the importance of technology as an enabler for real estate agents in the property sector. I always steal your line around agents need to be high tech and high touch, mate. I've made it my own now. I'll use it, whatever. Really good news for the real estate sector today, particularly prop tech. I had a chat this morning with the head of open negotiation. They listed on the stock exchange yesterday, mate. In their prospectus, 20 cents a share, listed, went up to about 35 cents in the first day, stabilized at about 31 cents. So they got huge growth from 20 cents to 31 cents in one day. Testament, I think, an acknowledgement of the importance of technology in property. Really good news for the property sector and for all those other prop techs who are out there raising money right now, investing their time, energy, effort, and hard-earned dollars into building technology platforms and technology engines to help agents and property managers do better. I know you are an ambassador for a number of different prop techs, Tom. So I just really wanted to make that. That's really good news.
The interesting thing about the property techs, Phil, like I talk to them, as you know, and a lot of these are your clients as well, right? You know, Agent Box. They grew their market share dramatically, right? So there is a lot of prop tech companies, right? You know, Campaign Agent, they're going gangbusters. It appears that technology now, I think it happened because of COVID last year. People started
accelerated.
It accelerated it, right? It accelerated it. And I have to say to you, like the shift in my work face-to-face to technology now is, I think it's, well, right at the moment it's 100%, but take away the last month, it's about 75, 25, and it used to be 90% face-to-face. So that's changed. Anyway, guys and girls, by the way, for those that don't know, because it is on my channels coming in first, Phil Tarrant is the editor of REB and a number of other businesses that are owned under the Momentum Media brand.
Yeah, I should have properly introduced myself. My official title, Tom, executive editor of real estate and consumer wealth at Momentum Media. So it's generally my job to talk about real estate and give some sense for what's happening, but then making sure that all of our products that support agents and property investors and all these people is getting the right content through it. So that's my job. But this is one of the highlights, mate. I'm happy we're back. I really enjoyed last year when we were doing our show. So I look forward to us picking through those comments and working out what we're going to call this.
All right, Phil. Thanks a lot, everyone. Signing off. Have a great day. Stay healthy.